Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Krishna C. Nadella, and this is State of Mind. Today's topic is about maintaining mental and physical balance. Being a college student can be a difficult balancing act. It is easy to get weighed down with the pressures of academics, social life, and choosing a major and career. If personal problems are piled up on top of these pressures, you can feel overwhelmed and lose your balance. As such, some students feel that college life is like walking a tightrope with many competing activities vying for your attention and time. But never fear, registered dietitian and wellness coach Kristen Carlucci is here to provide us with some tips and insight to ensure that no matter how unstable things might be, you can always maintain your balance. Kristen, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
So I actually have a top 10 list. It's a combination of many things I did in terms of research going into this episode. And I think what would be best for our audience is for you to opine and provide commentary as to each one of these tips and ones that you endorse yourself.
Absolutely.
So number one, set realistic goals. Talk to me about that.
I think goal setting is obviously so important, but I think it's really challenging to do. You kind of have to find that balance between, you don't want to set goals that are too lofty and unattainable that you end up feeling frustrated and you can't figure out, how you're ever going to accomplish this. But you also don't want to set goals that are too easy that you think, I'll get to it when I get to it. I don't even have to work that hard.
It's not really a goal.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think the key is finding that nice middle ground there. One of the tools that I like to use is called SMART goal setting.
Okay.
So SMART stands for specific, manageable, achievable, relevant, and timely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so an example of that is, if you say you want to get a summer internship, instead of just saying, my goal is to find a summer internship, you want to say, I want to find a summer internship in this field by this date.
Okay.
And then in order to do that, I'm going to go to 1 or 2 networking events each month. So that way, it's a little more, you can actually achieve it. You set a time limit to it, because otherwise, if it's just out there, you can accomplish it whenever. It could be 10 years down the road. So same with exercise, saying instead of just saying, oh, I want to start exercising more, say, okay, I want to try and go to the gym 3 times a week after class, and that way it's a little more.
It puts it on paper, so to speak, and once it's on paper, it's real.
Exactly. And I think in terms of goal setting, even making it visual and really making sure that you're writing it down, or even creating a vision board with, visuals that remind you of what those goals are, I think can be extremely crucial and a nice reminder, because you might have goals that you set in January and 6 months later you look back maybe at that original list and you're like, oh wow. And those goals can always continue to change. It doesn't have to be set in stone, which is what's great about goals. You can say, this one's not really a priority anymore, and cross it off the list.
And I can tell you that's relevant even today, long after college. I still goal set, I still write things down on paper, and it keeps me focused, so it's great advice. Number 2, learn to study effectively. What does that mean?
I think everybody has their own study styles. Some people work and study better in the mornings, some study better at night, some like studying alone, some study better in a group, some people like making note cards, some people just like reading through. So I think you really need to find a study technique that sticks and that works for you, and really stick to a schedule where you can really set it up. So again, pulling all those all-nighters is not going to be very helpful. You're better off spacing it out throughout the week or 2 in advance and taking little chunks of time rather than trying to cram in, 6 to 7 hours of studying the night before a test.
I think this is such great advice. The academic setting teaches in one style, but what we fail to remember is that a lot of people take the knowledge differently, and catering it to how you study best is something we don't talk enough about, so thank you. I think that's great to just remind people, you don't all have to study the same way.
Exactly.
Number 3, learn to better manage your time and avoid procrastination. I think college students could do a lot better in this area.
Yeah, I love this one, and it was something that I have always struggled with. I think one of the most successful things that I personally use and I recommend to the people that I work with is, if you have a calendar, whether it's you do it in your phone or you have a calendar on your wall or you have a paper calendar, writing down and scheduling, as crazy as it might sound, scheduling specific times to eat, to exercise, to socialize, to study, and carve out some time for just fun me time as well. And with the procrastination piece, I know I'm guilty of it, is the going to social media. You know, you're in the middle of doing something and you're like, let me take a little mental break. And then you go to Facebook and before you know it, 30 minutes has passed. So I recommend scheduling that time into your calendar as well. 15-minute, segments, maybe first thing in the morning, at lunch, and in the evenings. And then instead of spending hours and hours on social media that isn't getting you towards your end goal that you really need to get done, which ends up causing a little more stress in the end that you haven't gotten what you need to do done, then you have that space really scheduled in there and you say, hey, I'm doing this without guilt. I have my 15-minute window. Let me set a timer, and when that 15 minutes is done, I get back to what I need to be doing.
It also gets us off of our phones, which I think is starting to become an epidemic unto itself across the country.
Absolutely.
So I want to take a second to stop, because we acknowledge that procrastination happens, not just in college, but in society at large. Why is that? Why is it that as mankind, not to get all philosophical, we can't stick to our schedules and actually do what needs to be done when we have the time and instead wait until the last minute?
I think we've created this multitasking, monster in our world these days where we can't just sit and do one thing. If we're trying to check emails at night, we also have the TV on in the background, or we're on our computers and have to listen to music, or we can't sit, in a car or on a subway without checking our phones consistently. So I think you have that ready access of information, and I think in one way it's great because we're hungry for information and you have all of it right at your fingertips. But I think it is extremely important for your mental and well-being to really just shut it down at some point when you take that time to really, look at that one task at hand and get it done. You'll realize how much more effective you are.
Got it. Number 4, this is right up your alley, eating well.
Yeah, and it's obvious, when you eat, there's so much research backing up when you eat well, you feel better, you perform better academically, and, in the real world, you're more yourself. And the key is, with eating well, is to really focus on whole foods, real foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins. And an important one, especially for brain boosting activity, is your healthy fats. And the fats, what we think we've always seen fats as the enemy, but really it's incredibly crucial for, if we're not giving our brains those healthy fats, it's not running at full capacity. So really focusing on incorporating some avocados or nuts and seeds or olive oil or regular olives.
So do healthy fats come from vegetables primarily?
They can come, mostly from vegetables. Yeah, that's the main sources.
Okay, and when we say eating well, 3 square meals a day?
Everybody's a little bit different. I prefer 3 meals a day with 2 to 3 small snacks in between, just because I feel like that helps to keep energy levels up. Again, you want to make sure that you're choosing the healthy snacks and not, going for the processed junk foods.
Anything in a bag, as you said in the previous episode.
Yes.
Number 5, exercising regularly. Before you answer the question, establish what we mean by exercise. I always get the sense of that guy in the gym who's lifting and bench pressing more than I weigh. I don't think that's what we're implying here.
Absolutely. I get so many people, they're like, the idea of going to the gym, just, I hate it. I can't, if you tell yourself you have to go to the gym, but you hate it, you're never going to get there. So you're already setting yourself up to fail. So exercise can be anything. It can be, instead of taking the bus to where you need to go, walking there. It can be, taking, while you're watching TV, doing some steps in place or some push-ups during commercials. It doesn't always have to be super structured. It can be going outside for a hike and getting some, activity done with friends. It can be joining a fun recreational sports team. So it doesn't always have to be the structured going to the gym, lift weights, be a hamster on a treadmill. You don't have to do that. Okay,
and obviously with it being 2016, with the advent of technology, what type of apps are out there now that can help people stay a little bit more honest with themselves?
The Fitbit I love the Fitbit. It's, you have these wearable trackers that I think are great because, there's nothing magical about them that's going to necessarily tell you, okay, you should be doing this. But
Right.
there's something about the awareness of saying, you know, oh my gosh, I looked down at my Fitbit and I've walked 4 steps today.
Oh, wow.
I've been sitting at my desk
Right.
for the past 4 hours. I need to get up, and it will encourage people to just, whether it's get up and do like a quick lap around and just sit back down, to just move a little bit more, and just that general awareness of, wow, I am a lot more sedentary than I think I am.
Right.
And for a lot of college students, as active as you can be, you're also sitting and studying and in
Right.
class a lot of the time as well. So.
And that won't actually change. For a lot of corporate jobs, the translation is actually quite linear in that you'll be spending a lot of time sitting, going through emails and looking at a computer.
Exactly.
So all the more reason that they should really consider this early on.
Absolutely.
Number 6, interesting one. Take charge, set priorities.
I love this one, and I think it's very tough, because sometimes whether you make to-do lists or you don't make to-do lists, I think we tend to, in our brains, we have all these ideas of, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, and then it becomes so overwhelming that you feel frozen, and you're like, oh, I don't think I can do any of this. Let me check Facebook and try and procrastinate.
Right.
So I think being able to write it down, get it on paper, I think is key, or writing a list on your phone if you need to, but writing it down on paper and really prioritizing what are the most important things that I need to get done. And there's a book that I love, or an audio book that I listen to. It's called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy.
Okay.
And it totally transformed how I prioritize. And
It has nothing to do with eating frogs.
It doesn't have to do with eating frogs. What it's saying is that frog is that task on your to-do list that you want to do the absolute least, and you're putting off, but it tends to be the biggest thing you need to get done, but you really don't want to do it.
Right.
So the idea of Eat That Frog is, when you come in first thing in the morning, as much as you don't want to do it, eat that frog first thing in the day. Get that task done that you have been putting off first things first, and it actually creates, once you've crossed it off the list, it gives you this sense of accomplishment, and the rest of the day is a breeze from there.
Naturally.
You just have those small little items on your to-do list that you know that they're going to be really easy to do, but you tend to go to them first because you're procrastinating from this bigger task.
So I think that's really helpful, because I'll be the first to admit, when we do priorities, everything's important. Everything's the top thing to do. But there's always that, like you said, one thing that we don't want to talk about, that thing we shall not speak of, as they say. Is that typically your philosophy as this book's, do that first?
Yeah, and I wasn't always that way, and I think once I started trying it out and saying, oh, let me try and put that task first thing on my list, it was a total change in my productivity, and my time management, and stress management, and just feeling like, wow, I accomplished something.
Got it.
And then I can do my other things with ease, but you get your toughest things out of the way first.
So the one thing I want to bring up, because I think one of the reasons I personally put off the toughest task is, I am by no means a perfectionist, but I always want to do it a certain way. And I know it takes more time, I know it takes more energy, it takes more of me as a person. Talk to us about the ability to just get it done. Don't worry about being a perfectionist.
This is tough, and I think the key is you have to just say, like you said, let me just, whatever it is that I need to do, let me just set a timer and work on it. I don't need to necessarily complete the whole thing or have it ready 100%, but let me just start it.
Yeah.
And I think the key is sometimes just getting started. And then from there, you can look at it, the next day, if you have the time, you look at it the next day, and you at least have a structure and a framework and a draft, and then you're looking at it from fresh eyes, again, tackling that first thing in the morning when we tend to be our freshest and most alert and aware, and then we can kind of evaluate from there. But yeah, the key, I think, is just do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Nike Corporation.
Yes, exactly.
Number 7, simplify. This is interesting. You just talked about this multitasking world we live in. Talk to me about simplification.
I think with simplification, it's a human nature to try and take on too much. We want to be involved in everything, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's a great thing that you have passions and hobbies that you want to pursue.
Right.
I think the key is being able to pinpoint and pin down what are the things that are really, making you happy, and what are the things that are starting to become a burden, and identifying it that way, and being able to say, you know what, if I know I have something that I really need to work on, I can't overcommit myself this week and plan, a ton of, dinners with friends
Right.
and networking events. I need to maybe just take some time, either just for me or, to really help get this task accomplished.
And that's not a sign of weakness by any means. It's
No.
actually a sign of strength, right?
Absolutely. The people that you always hear, they say, I was overwhelmed with too many things that I wasn't able to be good at any of them.
Right.
So it wasn't until they stripped down to the core things that really made them happy or made them be a better person in certain ways, or they got the jobs that they needed to get done, that they could say, I was able to really shine in these other buckets of areas of their lives.
Got it. Number 8, let things go. Don't sweat the small stuff. Talk to me about that.
I think when you have a lot going on in your life, same with when that to-do list is piling up, everything starts to become a big deal, whether it's little or small. And so one trick that I like to use is to ask yourself, will this bother me 1 week from now, 1 year from now, 10 years from now? And that's a nice way to kind of prioritize. Like if you are upset because you got into a fight with your best friend, that will probably bother you 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So that might be more of a priority to worry about than, oh my gosh, I'm so busy this week that I haven't had time to get my laundry done.
Right.
That's not going to bother you a week from now.
Right.
So it kind of helps you to, again, get that list down and
Yeah.
prioritize what's really important and just say, you know what, I'm spending all this time stressing over this little thing
Right.
that in the grand scheme is of no importance to me,
Right.
but I'm finding ways to kind of just, that stress is slowly building and building. So why don't I cut through some of the things that don't matter and really focus on what I need to get done.
Do you find that college students typically need to focus on this one the most because everything's a big deal at that age?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think for anybody,
True, yeah.
we tend to, especially when we're in this heightened sense of feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
the snowball effect of all of a sudden it's, oh, well, this isn't working, well, then this isn't working.
Right.
And I think as hard as it is, powering the power of positive thinking and
Right.
harnessing that power, I think and just saying, you know what, this too shall pass.
Right.
We'll get through it and we'll figure it out. And it's not worth spending all this time worrying about it, because by next week, I'm going to sit there and say, why did I spend all this time worrying about it?
Love it. Number 9, explore your options, get help. This is interesting.
I think sometimes we think it's a sign of weakness to not reach out to people when we need them most, and whether that's family and friends, or especially on college campuses, there's so many resources, whether it's talking to your professors, going to tutoring centers, to the health center, to talking to counselors on site. There's so many options available to you, and I think when you get into the real world and the working world, sometimes you don't have the luxury of having all these people right there in one
Right.
place that you can easily get to.
That's true.
So really kind of being able to take advantage, and we all need people to talk to, and that's okay. And sometimes just voicing it out loud can be all you need to really make you feel better, and making sure that you're going to the right resources.
Do you think that we're doing a better job in today's day and age with millennials in terms of getting them to talk when they need help?
I think so. I think it's becoming, the idea of, mental well-being and mental health and stress management, I think slowly it's coming to the forefront. I think it still will take some time to really get there, but I think schools and workplaces as well, they're starting to realize the importance of having those outlets and those resources available to students and employees to really say, hey, it's confidential, we're here if you need to talk, because it's a tough time.
Absolutely. And then finally, kind of going on the same topic, know when it's time to quit. Now that's a big one for college students, because they don't go into college thinking they're not going to be able to do everything successfully.
I think it's hard to give up certain things, and especially through the years, you might join a club freshman year, and then by your senior year, you're kind of like, this doesn't really serve me, your interests may have changed,
Right.
or, it's no longer something that you're looking forward to, and going back to really, our time is precious, and fill it with things that you really enjoy, and sometimes you have to say, to be really good at what I need to accomplish, and to not feel overwhelmed, and to still make sure I'm having a social life and enjoying my free time and my downtime, there might be things that you just need to kind of let loose, and you just write down all of the things that you're involved with, and prioritize, list them of what's important to you, and maybe you can categorize them into different, you know, buckets of things. So maybe one's academic, one's social, one's family and friends. And I think, you know, that way it helps you to clarify what's still serving me a purpose and what may I have grown out of or just need to kind of cut loose.
Fair enough. So we got through our top 10 list, and first of all, thank you for your commentary on all of them. I see so many parallels between the working world and the college environment. Now, you obviously work and consult with many employees of Bloomberg L.P. Talk to me about those parallels that you've seen and how a lot of what you can do in college can help long-term when you become a working professional.
I think, you know, what I see is a lot of the similar parallels is the idea of, you know, time being, you know, precious, and, you know, people have really busy, you know, in the working world, they have busy work schedules. Maybe you commute into work, you have a family, you have a full day of working, you want to get your workout in, but you're like, where am I going to fit it in between my hour-long commute and a long work day and then getting home? And I think students struggle with, you know, okay, I have work commitments and social commitments and, you know, extracurricular commitments, and really trying to find that time management. And that's where I think that planning in advance and being able to prioritize what it is you need to get done, making sure that within that priority and that to-do list that you're including things that make you happy. Because at the end of the day, if it's all work, 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 and no play, and nothing to enjoy and look forward to and to reward yourself for how hard you work, I think that's when, you know, you're just kind of like, well, what is it all for? You know, you wanna find your why and kind of go from there and use that as your motivation to excel and exceed.
Well, I'm glad we found you, Kristen, and thank you so much again for being on the show. This has been a wealth of information. I think if any of our audience wants to get in touch with you, what are the social media platforms they can reach out to you on?
I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, all at Kristen, Kristen Carlucci, Carlucci.
Perfect. On that note, that'll wrap up our show for today. If you like what you saw in today's episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe on the following social media platforms at the bottom of your screen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. And remember, every life is a book. Make yours a bestseller. Have a good night.